What happened to Kissy Missy in Chapter 4? At the end of Chapter 3, Kissy looks perfectly fine. No bruises, scratch marks, she's barely even got dirt on her fur. But fast forward to Chapter 4 and Kissy looks like she's gone through a lot. Her entire left side looks to have been seriously burned, along with her left eye reflecting the damage. She isn't even able to keep it all the way open. And there seems to be some type of entry wound on her arm. An injection, a shot, it's hard to tell. There's bandages all around her torso too, including her left leg. But what we can all agree on is that this wasn't some kind of freak accident. Something or someone intentionally did something to her. But before we talk about what happened to her, we first have to talk about how she even got down here. If we go back to the very beginning of Chapter 4, Poppy lets us know that because Kissy Missy was attacked at the top, she's gonna have to make her way back up to where she was and leave us down to figure things out.
Listen, go on ahead. Don't wait for me. I won't leave Kissy behind, and I won't sacrifice our plan. Not because of me.
We don't see Poppy at all after this, and it's only until this scene that we finally see her. Oh my goodness gracious. Kissy. What happened to you? Oh my goodness. Is that the prototype? Is that the freaking prototype? But for Kissy Missy, we do end up hearing her before this. I'm not sure if you caught it, but as we were traversing through Caves 1C, we end up hearing this on our way to the prison. Oh, what? What? Kissy! I'm coming. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this seems like the exact moment that Kissy got injured while trying to be freed from Poppy. It is possible that this is the moment where Poppy found Kissy Missy, barely managed to set her free, and Kissy ended up getting seriously hurt in the process, which results in Poppy having to tend to her wounds as best she can. And it took a pretty long time for us to see both of them reunited, but there's something about this that sticks out to me. When we got grabbed by Kissy Missy, it was made clear to us that both of them were already hiding from this thing. And if they were hiding from it, then that could possibly mean that whatever is out there is looking for them specifically. They aren't just wandering around doing a maintenance check. No, this is something trying to catch its prey. And unfortunately for him, they ended up escaping. But if we were to stick with this theory and say that whoever's outside was initially chasing Poppy and Kissy Missy, then we're also gonna have to talk about who or what this thing is. And after that, we'd still have to talk about whether or not this is a connection to the first attack that Kissy Missy endured. So let's start with the first question. What was that thing outside? Well, there's barely anything to comment on regarding its appearance, apart from the fact that it has this mechanical crab-like kind of movement. It's not smooth at all, and we can already rule out the facts that this is a human. Could it be Harley Sawyer? I wouldn't blame you for thinking this at first, but let's look at what we know. From what's been alluded to us, it's been made somewhat clear that Sawyer's body is no more. All that remains is his brain and consciousness. It's the only human thing he has left. And you can just barely say that. It's not directly stated whether or not Sawyer's brain has been preserved or digitized, but all of that is a theory for another time. All I'm saying is that it would be incredibly unlikely for this thing to be the Doctor, as it's been said and hinted to us that he's only able to control and oversee the factory. He doesn't really have a physical form. The only piece that can fit into this puzzle is the prototype. And for this, we gotta look back to Chapter 3. As you guys all know, there was that one particular scene with Catnap, worshipping a makeshift version of the prototype. But who is the very person that confirms this very fact?
Hey, did you see the shrine? Catnap made it for the prototype.
Yeah, video on that coming soon. But now that we know what we know regarding Ollie, you're telling me that the prototype was talking about Catnap's relationship with the prototype? Is that not the most egotistical play you can make? But besides that, let's actually analyze this shrine, now that we have some kind of reference to go off of. And if we look at the, for lack of better words, arms, there seems to be a lot of them. This isn't Catnap trying to make some humanoid figure. It's clear that whatever he's trying to replicate has a very unique appearance. You can even see crab or spider legs at the very bottom of this thing. And if we were to imagine this thing moving, it would also reflect the movement of what we saw in chapter 4. One thing that I do remember saying in my past videos though, is that this version of the prototype was likely going to reflect the real version of the prototype. But apparently, it was the prototype himself who told us in chapter 3 that the real thing is gonna be way more terrifying.
That shrine? Did it scare you? If you thought that was terrifying, just wait until you see the real thing.
It's very hard to talk about this topic knowing I haven't made a video on it. But now that we've figured out who this entity is, we have to speculate on whether or not this can be connected to what happened to Kissy Missy at the end of chapter 3. And well, it wouldn't make sense for two separate entities to be attacking Kissy Missy, with one going out to look for her after being freed. And because of that, if we all run with the theory that Kissy Missy and Poppy were being chased, and the theory that the thing that was chasing them was the prototype, then it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say that the prototype is also the very thing that attacked Kissy Missy in the first place. And where was the prototype before this initial attack? Well, we just finished watching him kill Catnap and spare our lives in the process. The prototype was already nearby, and it's possible that he was just waiting for the right moment to strike. And this moment was right when Kissy Missy was completely alone, out of view from anyone. But there's still another question we have to answer. How did Kissy Missy end up being injured like this? In chapter 2, when we got our first look at the prototype, he was only grabbing a dead mommy longlegs. In chapter 3, we only see him plunging his hand into Catnap's mouth and dragging him back from where he came. Grabbing mommy longlegs, I can understand, but Catnap is definitely a heavy toy, right? He has to be at the very least 500 pounds. And the prototype is just lifting him up with one hand like it's nothing, right after stabbing right through him, mind you. So with this information, it wouldn't be too crazy to assume that whatever body the prototype has, it's a strong one, and possibly a large one at that. And the thing we see looking for Kissy Missy and Poppy is definitely not small. But this doesn't really answer the question. Kissy Missy has burns all on the left side of her body, and the prototype doesn't really have any abilities that are centered around heat. This brings us to two possible reasons for this. Reason one is that the prototype just hasn't been shown long enough to show all of his current abilities. Kissy Missy unfortunately fell victim to these abilities. Reason 2 is that Kissy Missy was brought to a specific location, and that location was equipped with the machinery capable of harming her. But if you really think about it, the prototype has been collecting parts of toys for himself, likely to make himself stronger than ever before. It wouldn't make sense for him to attack Kissy and then bring her somewhere specific to injure her, because if he really wanted to harm her, he would have just done it himself. And for that reason, I'm gonna lean more towards reason 1. But guys, the next thing we're about to talk about may break this theory entirely. Every single point that I've made that you've possibly been agreeing with might come crashing down. If we go back to the ending for chapter 3 one more time, but go a little bit backwards, we can recall the moment where Poppy presents a tape to us that they liked to call the Hour of Joy. The Hour of Joy was a large-scale rebellion by experimental toys in the Playtime Co-Factory that led to the mass killing of employees and ultimately forced the facility's closing. And this event was orchestrated by none other than the prototype. His motive was to free the toys from captivation and to sustain himself, hence the event name Hour of Joy. So when you fast forward to chapter 4 with all that info, it makes you wonder, why would the prototype attack Kissy Missy at all? Especially if he was the one who not only set her free, but intended to set her free along with the other toys. Well, to answer that question, let's go back to the Dog Day situation. When we came across Dog Day in Playcare, he let us know that we needed to get out of here as fast as possible, and that this was the home of the many smiling critters. But he also says this crucial line.
That thing, Catnap, the prototype is his god, and this is what he does to heretics.
Catnap treats him like a god, killing everyone that opposes him.
Hold on, back it up. These lines do not line up with each other. On one hand, we have Dog Day saying that the torture he's being put through is because of him being against the prototype. On the other hand, we have Ollie, who we now know after the events of chapter 4 is in fact the prototype, saying something different. He says that he kills anyone who opposes him. If the prototype was telling the truth, then that means it wasn't Catnap himself who put Dog Day in this situation, because Catnap would have just killed him. We can say the same for our character as well, and it's been said by Poppy that Catnap was sent to us by the prototype. So he may have brought Dog Day in that situation, but he's clearly taking orders. Now, let's look back to my most popular video on the channel. What actually happened to the smiling critters? It talks about each cardboard cutout for each smiling critter, speculating on how each of them could have possibly died. When I mentioned Dog Day's voice lines and how he told us that we can't stay, I had this to say about it. In his first voice line, when he tells us to go fetch, that's referencing his want for us to leave Playtime Co., and he questions why we're still here. And when he tells us that we can't stay and that we shouldn't be here, he's indirectly revealing the truth of Playtime Co. and showing that he doesn't agree with its beliefs, more specifically the prototypes. And so, Catnap and the prototype torture Dog Day for encouraging the others to escape, as that's what they do to heretics. So with all of that being said, it's possible that the prototype also identified Kissy Missy as a heretic and tried to get rid of her similarly to how Dog Day was disposed of. Notice how Dog Day wasn't killed immediately after being seen as a traitor and was tortured and eventually used against us. And it was none other than Poppy Playtime who prevented Kissy Missy from suffering the same fate. Ooh, that's a good theory. Oh, that's a good one.